Hello, everyone. I want to say good evening to everybody who joined us on this drizzly evening here in the room, and also to everybody who's joining us tonight on live stream. Apologies to those of you on live stream that we got started a little bit late. I also want to welcome our very special guests this evening from our 2021 Impact Grantee, the Homeless Children's Playtime Project. We have Char Beales, the chairman of the board, who will be speaking a little bit later. We also have Roderic Irby, the managing director, who will also be speaking later, and wearing two hats this evening as both a board member of Playtime and a longtime Many Hands member. Welcome, Jan Piercy. We're so glad you're here as well. I'm Kathryn Zecca. I'm president of the Many Hands board, and I'm delighted that you all could join us as we kick off the 2023 grant cycle. Tonight, I want to give you a brief overview of what we do here at Many Hands and how you can be involved. I also will introduce you to our new strategic plan that the board adopted this past June. And after answering any questions you may have about the strategic plan, I will gladly turn over the microphone to Char and to Roderic, who will talk about Playtime. And I apologize if my voice jumps in and out a little. I'm on the tail end of a long cold. So let me start by telling you about Many Hands. Many Hands is a collective giving organization, and over the past 18 years, we have granted more than $2.5 million to local organizations serving and empowering women, children, and families in socioeconomic need. Our grants help provide access to education, employment, health, and housing for thousands of families and individuals across our region. Last year, earlier this year really, last grant cycle, we granted more than $300,000 to 4 organizations. My Sister's Place, a DC-based organization which shelters, supports, and empowers survivors of domestic violence, received our $100,000 impact grant. And 3 other wonderful organizations received a $67,000 partner grant. Those were Beacon House, which provides educational support to children living in the Edgewood Commons neighborhood in Northeast DC, Capital Area Asset Builders, which helps build wealth and financial security for low-income area residents, and Nueva Vida, which supports Latina women whose lives are affected by cancer. As a collective giving organization, we combine the energy, the talents, and the resources of our members to maximize our impact as donors and philanthropists. We combine our individual gifts to make our grants, and we combine our beliefs, our values, and our experience to select each year's grantees. Becoming a member is simple. There is no application process. There is no volunteer requirement. Each member makes a gift of $1,000 or more, and if you are under 35, the required membership donation is $500. Once you become a member, you decide how and how much you want to be involved. You can serve on one of our 4 focus area committees and help review grant applications and select each committee's grantee. You can, at the end of our cycle in May, vote for which of the 4 focus area grantees will become the impact grantee. You can help plan events. You can join the membership committee. You can become involved in operations, or you can become involved in governance. You can do all of the above, or you can simply make your gift knowing that your investment in Many Hands will support high-impact local nonprofits and help build a community of engaged, informed donors. At the end of our programming this evening, board members Deborah Arendelle and Sastowski will tell you more about their experience at Many Hands and how you can join as a member. But for now, I would like to turn to an introduction of our 2022 to 25 strategic plan. Many Hands has seen many changes, both internal and external, over the last several years. Our membership has grown significantly, And so what was once a relatively small group of members, largely connected by ties of friendship, has become a larger, more formal, and more diverse organization. We have all lived through more than 2 years of a global pandemic. The pandemic has forced many hands, like nearly every other organization, to reimagine the way it operates, and it has highlighted challenges, but also opportunities for the way we do our work. And over the last several years, our nation, and many hands, has dealt with the national reckoning with racism, which has reverberated throughout the philanthropic sector. And that has challenged many hands to re-examine its policies, practices, and culture through a racial equity lens. Our strategic planning process began in the summer of 2021. We convened 5 listening sessions with our Emerita board, and we have many Emerita board members here tonight, and very glad to see you all, and with members at large. We conducted more than 20 interviews with former Many Hands members, with prior applicant organizations, and with prior grantees. Concurrently, Many Hands worked with a consulting firm, Conditioning Leaders, to carry out an organizational culture assessment focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion. In conjunction with that assessment, we held 2 additional all-member listening sessions, plus a separate listening session for members of color. We are very grateful for all of the input we received and for everybody who helped participate in the development of our strategic plan. The Many Hands Board held several meetings during the last grant cycle to reflect on all of the input we received and to identify and articulate our core values and priorities. And so we are now proud to introduce our 2022 to 25 strategic plan titled Sustaining Impact. The full plan will be available on the website, I believe, starting tomorrow, and will also be sent out in an email to everybody who attended the meeting tonight, as well as all of our members. For now, I just wanted to share a few things. First, I wanted to share our re-articulated mission. It now states, Many Hands leverages the power of collective giving to support nonprofits serving and empowering Washington, D.C. area women, children, and families in socioeconomic need. This language reflects that at our core, we are a grant-making organization, and we are a collective one that brings together our members' contributions and values. It also retains our focus on women, children, and families in socioeconomic need. You may have noticed that our mission no longer refers to Many Hands as a women's organization. In terms of grant making, we continue to direct our funding to women and children, but with respect to membership, we welcome donors of any gender who share our mission and our goals. I do want to say we have not forgotten our roots as a women's organization, and it is important to us that we continue to prioritize the empowerment of donors that philanthropy has historically overlooked. Although our mission focuses on grant making, Many Hands could not be the organization it is without its dedicated and focused membership. And for that reason, our plan includes our vision. And the vision states to provide philanthropists with meaningful opportunities to give, learn, and serve together in ways that best fit their interests and goals. So we want to make sure that Many Hands continues to serve all of its members with whatever levels of availability, interest, however much or little they want to be involved, the kinds of educational events they want to attend. We want to make sure that we are an organization that provides each member with the opportunities that best serves them. Execution on our mission and vision are defined by our 4 core values. I wanted to share those too. They are, first, Many Hands believes in the power of collective giving. Giving as a group, we achieve greater impact than we do as individuals. Second, Many Hands believes that diversity, equity, and inclusion are central to our work. To partner effectively with our nonprofits, we must both understand how race and other drivers of inequity shape the distribution of resources and opportunities within our society. Third, Many Hands believes in trust-based philanthropy. We trust grantees to know the best way to do their work, and we aim to reduce the burdens on nonprofit growth, innovation, and progress. And finally, Many Hands believes in volunteerism. As an organization run and led by volunteers, we can direct greater resources to grantees and offer donors engaging and meaningful opportunities to learn and serve. These 4 core values informed our plans going forward with respect to grants, with respect to membership, and operations. I will not go into all of the details tonight. I did want to highlight a few things before I open up the floor for questions. With respect to grant making, our biggest development is a stronger lean into trust-based grant making. From here on out, Many Hands will give only general operating grants. We will no longer accept proposals for specific programs or projects. This is a bit of a change for us, and we know that many members in the past have been interested in knowing precisely how a Many Hands grant will be spent. But we know and we believe that through our process, especially our focus area process, we learn so much about our grantees. We learn about their goals, their leadership, their programming, their finances, and their alignment with our mission. And if, at the end of the process, we have the confidence that we do to award them a grant, we should trust that the organization knows better than anyone how to make the best and most effective use of our grant funds. One more note on grant making. We decided to stay the course and maintain our current structure of awarding a single impact grant and multiple partner grants. We did consider launching a smaller, separate grant that we've been discussed among many of our members, and we've seen some other collective giving organizations do that. But our research showed that our grant making was effectively reaching the organizations and the populations that we sought to serve. And we analyzed other DC grant-making organizations and realized that we are the only one that gives multiple large amount grants per year. In our interviews with prior applicants, there was near universal support for our awarding of large grants, and that includes from applicants who didn't receive a grant, but who told us, please keep giving the large grants. You're the only ones out there that do that. And so we determined that our current structure best met our goals and our applicants' needs. Turning very briefly to membership, we remain focused on building a strong, engaged, and committed membership. We plan to undertake efforts to increase member retention, both by developing a plan for onboarding new members and strengthening our stewardship of returning members. We also will launch initiatives to broaden our membership base to achieve more diversity. We did not set a specific growth target in our strategic plan. We're not aiming to achieve X members or Y members. Rather, if we are successful in retention and in growing our membership base, that should lead to growth, but we wanted to focus on these two specific areas of membership and not just set a hard but non-substantive topic. As I mentioned above, we will have our full strategic plan available on the website and sent out in an email to all of you. Before I turn the floor over to our speakers from Playtime Project, does anybody have any questions that they'd like me to answer right now? Over there?
Can you explain a little bit, the funding mechanism that you are presenting, like big monies and not, I was not very clear to me.
Sure. The question is whether I can present the funding mechanism that we're presenting. The way we've structured our funding is we spend our grant cycle raising funds from our members. At the end of the cycle in May, we give out a single $100,000 impact grant and 3 partner grants that effectively split the kitty, disperse out equally whatever else we've raised. Over the last 4 or 5 years, that has always been over $50,000. And so we decided to stay the course and keep our grants in that structure and at that level, rather than pick out some of that fundraising and give out a small $5,000, $10,000, or $25,000 grant. Yes, Shelley?
expenses, or was that just sort of an internal thing and we still look for?
Great question. It's been asked, are we going to communicate to our applicant organizations that we're awarding only general operating expenses? And the answer is yes. It is in our application now. We revamped the application. It says we are granting only general operating expenses. I believe it states so on the website. Starting last year and continuing this cycle, we do an open applicants webinar, which is taking place next Tuesday at 10 a.m., and we will reiterate that on the webinar as well. I think I've got 2 more questions in back. Yes, Noni?
I know that originally Many Hands was an organization where 100% of what you gave went out in a grant, but the organization is not. Is that still true? 100% of your $1,000.
So the question is whether traditionally, if you gave a $1,000 donation, 100% of your $1,000 went out to the grant fund. And the question is that still true? The answer is yes. The $1,000, if you give $1,000, it goes directly into the grant fund. We do, as you've seen on our website, if somebody is able to donate more, to go to general operating expenses, $100, $250, or $500. We do allocate that internally to our operational expenses. If at the end of a grant cycle, we do not use everything that's been donated for operational expenses towards our operational expenses, once we're insured, everything's paid for, and our reserves are met, we roll any excess grants for operations also into the grant fund. So yes, and then more detail. And one last question.
Yes, I'm sorry, I must not heard well, so I know you said this. So you give how many partnership grants a year for?
Sure. The question was exactly how many grants we give a year, and we give 1 impact grant and 3 partner grants. So we have 4 focus area committees. Each committee starts their process with 20, 30 applications, however many they receive. They cull it down to 1. That final one is a grantee. Each of the 4 come to our annual meeting in May and present. The one that receives the most votes, like Playtime did, receives the $100,000 impact grant, and the other 3 will receive partner grants. It depends on the question is how much are the partner grants. It depends how much we've raised that year. Last year it was $67,000. The year before it was $70,000. The 2 years prior to that it was over $50,000. Yeah. I've got a couple more questions in the room. I'll take 2 more. I'm happy to answer more questions after, and then I do want to turn the floor over to Char and to Roderic. Joanne?
I just want to applaud you all. I think you've done a fantastic job updating the mission and the strategies and the values of this organization. And I know a little bit about how much hard work went into doing it, and I think it's extraordinary, and I'm very proud of being part of this not new, but sort of new organization. It's great.
Evolving. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Jan?
Well, Joanne took the words out of my mouth because I think it is very impressive. I wanted to ask, I know that as part of the strategic plan, you were reviewing those 4 verticals, and I gathered that you decided that you want to stay with those 4 focus areas.
We did. I will say a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 grant cycles ago, we reevaluated our 4 focus areas, and we did some redefining and a little bit of realigning then. That's when what had been our job readiness committee became economic empowerment. We wanted to broaden out to have something that was not just job training, but building financial wealth. And we kind of surveyed the landscape. We interviewed nonprofits. We looked at other grant-making organizations to see were there any areas we were missing that we should be granting to, and we didn't have any holes. It was more a matter of making sure it was clear kind of what went in each area, and making sure our areas encompassed everything. But we didn't see a need necessarily to redefine our focus areas. We had determined they were broad enough to serve all of the women, children, and family-focused needs that we saw out there. Okay, so with that, thank you very much for the kind words from the audience. We are thrilled to welcome our two guests from our 2021 Impact Grantee. Char Beales has chaired the board of Playtime since 2019. Prior to joining Playtime's board, Char served as president and CEO of the Cable and Telecommunications Association for Marketing for more than 20 years. In the community, Char serves as secretary of the Arlington Arts Center Board of Directors. She also volunteers with Compass to provide pro bono consulting to DC area nonprofits, including Greater DC Diaper Bank, Healthy Babies Project, and Rebuilding Together DC Alexandria. Also with us is Roderic Irby, Playtime's managing director. Excuse me. Roderic has worked in youth services for over 20 years. He came to Playtime from the DC office of the State Superintendent of Education's Youth Re-Engagement Center. He was born in Prince George's County, Maryland, grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He serves on several community and nonprofit boards and is the assistant girls basketball coach at Largo High School. Yay! After Char and Roderic speak, we will open the floor to Q&A. If any of our guests on live stream want to submit a question, we ask you to please email your questions to our main email account, which is info, I-N-F-O, @manyhandsdc.org. That's info@manyhandsdc.org, and we will pass the question on to Char and to Roderic.
Thank you, Kathryn. That was wonderful, and it was great to hear about your strategic plan. What an impressive organization you have, and all that you have accomplished for our community is really outstanding. And so thanks to all of you for what you do, and also thank you on behalf of the Homeless Children's Playtime Project for making us your grantee. That was an extraordinary act, and the timing worked so well for what we were none of us knew we were going to experience with that pandemic. And so your grant was really a game changer for us. As we were in the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, the general operating funds that you gave to us with this generous grant allowed us to hire more staff, have the confidence to hire more staff, and to test and learn new ways to reach children and families experiencing homelessness. And in fact, go beyond just those who were experiencing homelessness to those who have housing insecurity. It was really, as I say, a game changer, and we really appreciate your confidence in us that we knew what to do with the money. The other thing that's been happening at Playtime, and I'm sure many of you have been watching this unfold, is that DC, we were exclusively a DC organization for our first 16 to 17 years. And DC is changing the way that they are working with homeless families. And some of it is very good. Closing DC General, yes, very good. Opening up the ward-based shelters that are new and more dignified, mostly good. But there are things that are happening that aren't so good for the families, mostly headed by women and their children in those shelters. For example, during the pandemic, DC made the decision that the congregate housing wasn't the best way to go. And so when families came to register as experiencing homelessness, they were put right into the rapid rehousing program where they got a voucher. Now, on the good news is they got an apartment. But on the bad news is they didn't get any case management. They didn't get any advice on what services were available to them or how they could access those services. They were basically isolated. And so that's something that Playtime has been watching and helping and looking at how we're going to deal with that. But that was the impetus between COVID and the change in the way DC approached family homelessness, for Playtime to test and learn new ways to reach children, particularly, and their families experiencing housing insecurity. We tested a lot of different models. The one that is the absolute home run is to expand our geographic territory to Prince George's County. And we are now serving 2 shelters in Prince George's County, Shepherd's Cove and Warm Nights. And that is our largest concentration of the traditional Playtime full program, is in Prince George's County. And it's really been wonderful for those families who did not have access to anything like a Playtime project. We've tested going into DC schools in areas where there is a high percentage of children who are have housing insecurity. And we're still learning in that. We feel that we learned enough the first year with one school that we're going to try it with other schools, but it is a learning process. It is not an easy pathway. We tried summer camps and partnered with organizations that already were providing summer camp, and with the housing, the crisis of daycare and taking care of children, that has a lot of potential, but again, that is not an easy path to follow. We also pivoted during COVID to have play kits, age-appropriate play kits for the children, because when you think about it, during COVID, the kids that were living in homeless shelters or the overflow hotel shelters were literally confined to a single room. And oftentimes it's a mom with multiple children in one room. And think about what happened in your home, how confined you felt. Well, just imagine them. But having play kits to look forward to that were age appropriate and very specific with activities for those kids, we had no idea that would be such a huge help for those families. And tonight we have brought several of the play kits that are out in the main room if you want to take a look at what those look like. Because we learned about the play kits, now we've been able to pivot to working with the migrant families that have been coming in by the busload to DC and are being housed in a motel along New York Avenue. So that we're bringing play kits in Spanish to those kids because they've had trauma, and that's what Playtime has really always been about, is helping children get through the trauma of their life experience. So I just want to say that your grant really allowed Playtime to stay true to our mission. And our mission is focused on the idea that play is a fundamental right for children. And in our society, in our area, there are many programs to help the families, to help the parents, and of course we want to help the parents get back on their feet. But the children fall through the cracks, and that's what Playtime Project is all about, is maintaining that fundamental right for children to play. So that's the big picture of what's going on at the Playtime Project, but let me introduce you to Roderic, who's got some more details for you, and then we'll take some questions.
Well, good evening. Wow, a lot of beautiful faces. Again, I am Roderic Irby. I'm the managing director at Playtime. Kathryn, first I want to say thank you to your membership, to your board, because receiving that impact grant, as Char said, has been game-changing. It has allowed us to think outside of the box, but live inside of our lanes of who we are as Playtime. Char kind of stole my line, but I'm just going to add to it, because the youth that we serve must understand that play is not a privilege. It is a necessity to the development of who they are. And so your grant allowed us to do that. So again, we want to thank you and your board and your membership. Absolutely. And your board and your membership, especially for your leadership sitting in the helm as president. But the membership, as she said, because of you, we are here today and we are able to continue to do the work that we're doing. A couple of things I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about Playtime from an operational perspective as well as from a programmatic perspective. From an operational perspective, this impact grant has allowed us, as Char said, to expand our staff. We were able to hire a Prince George's County program manager, a District of Columbia program manager, and a community-based program manager, which allowed us to focus specifically in those areas. So when we talk about Prince George's County, we talk about it as a whole. We look at Warm Nights through Community Connection Services Institute, and we look at Shepherd's Cove, and what else is there? Because those are just two hubs on two opposite sides of the county. But now how do we infiltrate the county to actually do the real work? So then we look at DC. As Char said, DC is evolving every day when we talk about families facing housing insecurity. How do we locate those individuals? Our school model helped us see that. Because when you look at housing insecurity from a school's perspective, you talk about the McKinney-Vento Act, in which that act states that families who live with each other, that are doubled up, are considered homeless. But how do you remove the stigma of the word homeless and serve these kids and give them an opportunity to be just that? And we were able to go into the schools. We had a little challenges, but we expected it because it was a trial. And so what we've learned is that those children are in the schools in aftercare programs, but then the aftercare slots fill up. So now they need another program. And who's there to answer that call? Playtime. And so we're going to try this again at a different school in a different community to see now that we've actually, hit those bumps in the road, how do we actually look at those obstacles and overcome them? And then when we talk about our community-based programming with our play kits outside. So outside you will see we have play kits, Our play kits outside focuses on different areas. So one of the areas is like an infant play kit. So families that are coming in with small children, what does that consist of? A small book, something squishy they can play with. Then we have kits that focuses on grief and bullying, giving them something to actually write down how they feel, a way to express themselves because they're confined to this one space and they're sitting here facing this trauma. What do? What activities are in their possession? And so we were able to apply this impact grant to apply an impact to situations that some of these children feel that they will never come from. And lastly, what we just started, and this was just based off of research, is how do we provide kits for children and families that face domestic violence? So now we have research-based information that has allowed us to create a domestic violence play kit. What does that look like? And all of those things are outside on the table for you to peruse through and see. This grant has also allowed us to recognize other partners that you all have worked with. The DC Diaper Bank, My Sister's Place, DC Central Kitchen. So what you all are allowing us to do is come together as nonprofits, as a community that's benefiting from the work that you all put in, which makes us stronger as a unit in actually providing those services. I want to tell you a story because we want to talk about that impact from the partnership with DC Central Kitchen. Last year, a part of your grant helped us implement the first pop-up pumpkin patch at J.C. Knoll Elementary School. What did that consist of? That consisted of 20 different community agencies coming together on a football field at a school to create a corn maze, which was specifically for parents, with every resource that they might need, whether it was diapers, whether it was food, whether it was receiving TANF, whether it was applying for Medicaid. We were able to come together collectively as a unit to put on that pop-up pumpkin patch. And the warm story from this was at the end of this event, a father came to the mic and said to us, "Wow, nobody ever thinks about us. This was something special." We had DPR out there with the bicycles for the kids, with the jump ropes, with the video game trucks, DC Central Kitchen putting on cooking displays. They said nothing like this has ever happened. So we did it. And this year we're going to do it again, and we're taking it to another community. And I'm excited to announce that that community will be Kingleaf Recreation Center over in Northwest DC, in which they just had another shooting of families and kids because they have nothing to do. So we're going to step in as Playtime and provide that experience so this doesn't continue to happen. Whew. Thought I was getting nervous, but this is going pretty good. Also, when we talk about from a programmatic standpoint, we were able to add an addition when we talk about move-out support to families. When we were talking about homelessness and resources, once they get put into those rapid rehousing programs, what is left to do? How are they sustaining? And that's where the issue lies. How are they sustaining? So Playtime said, okay, we're going to expand a little bit, because how can we introduce play and progress to a child and leave them by themselves? I want to tell you a story about a young man named Omari, who was faced in a shelter because he was protecting his sister. This young man got shot in his back and now is paralyzed from the waist down. This is probably one of the strongest child that I've ever seen in my life. He is independent. He asks for no help. He rolls around in his chair as he nothing ever happened. And he's sitting in a shelter, well, was sitting in a shelter, and now has been moved. But how do we actually ensure that he's able to enroll in school now, to get the development things that he needs? How do we make sure that a bus picks him up? Because those services are no longer rendered from the shelter. But if we are about protecting children and the way that they play, then we had to step up and put some kind of effort into it. Which leads me to a young man named Stephen. This young man has autism, and not one school has evaluated him, provided any services for his family. So what did Playtime do? We stepped up. We actually are assisting this mother qualify for SSI, which is outside of the norm of who we are, but we are identifying that these children still need us, because that's how they're going to play when they have the supports within their own household. Because of your impact grant, we were able to think outside the box. But we stayed inside of those lines of ensuring that play is not a privilege. We're going to put everything at your foot to ensure that you can be a child every day. So, where do we go from here? I'm going to steal a little bit of Char spiel. We have to continue to identify ways to grow and support volunteers and philanthropic efforts such as Many Hands. How do we stay ahead of the changes to the systems that affect the populations that we serve? How do we expand the need for play? And how do we ensure that we're showing that we're thankful to the community, because play equity and housing security for all is a necessity. And at this time, I'm going to bring Char back up to close us out, and then I'll come and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Roderic. Much like your organization, Playtime has a very strong board, and we also have a strategic planning process to try to keep up with all this change. We benefit at our board by having subject matter experts. We have people who have been experienced board members in other nonprofits, and we have several people who actually experienced homelessness as children and have really guided a lot of our planning. We just had a board retreat 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, Jen was out of town and didn't get to be there, but we are in a strategic plan that operates from 2020 to 2024, a 5-year plan. And as you can imagine, when we put that together in 2019, we had no idea what was coming. But we have determined that the overarching plan is still very valid, but we needed to change a lot of our tactics to achieve our goals. And so we are vigilant and want to ensure that Playtime is really helping our target audience. I can report that we are a sound organization. We have come through these troubled times with a lot of support, including yours, and we appreciate that very much. And we will continue to follow the children. That's what our mission is, and help them experience the benefits of play in child development. So thank you again, and thank you so much for having Roderic and I come to talk to you, and now we'll open up the floor for questions. Roderic, come on up here. Do we have any questions, or do we have, oh yes, we have one right here.
Hi, I'm Katie Rosenthal. I'm a member of the Parent Advisory Committee at CCPC Nursery School. We helped with some of those backpacks last year.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're so proud that you guys received this awesome award. And I'm wondering, when you receive a award for $100,000 and you bring on, you're able to bring on staff, what do you do for the next fiscal year? And was this grant catalytic for other grants?
You know, let me answer that first. I think, yes, so the question is, was this, when you get a grant for $100,000 and you're hiring staff, what do you do in year 2? And was this grant catalytic? Where this grant was catalytic was in building the confidence that at the board level and at this management level, that we could use grants like this to attract other grants and be more secure in our future. We had been reluctant to hire additional staff for a long time because we thought, well, what happens in year 2? But we had to combine your grant and the power that gave us to go and talk to other grant makers to say, we are an organization you can trust and there will be value that comes from this. And it gave us the confidence to say, let's go for it. And that's what it really did.
Oh, perfect. Couldn't have said it better.
Yes.
How do you evaluate, the programs and your actions, and it's working, the results are what you wanted, and
The question is, how do we evaluate our programs? And I think Roderic's going to answer that.
So if we look at last year and going into this year, we set a goal at one point in time in serving, prior to my start, I want to say it was 250. With your impact grant, we have challenged ourselves to service 350 families, youth this year. And we are on target to meet that goal. Last year, to give you some specifics, we were able to serve 321 different youth. We were able to give out over 300 play kits. We were able to give out over 148 personalized holiday gifts with support from our other donors as well, backpacks, as well as 62 different referrals and gift cards for families. So we were able to distribute those funds in many different areas of what we do.
And that gives you the numbers, but we also have established a very intentional curriculum to build resilience in children. And we are measuring the impact in our full Playtime programs on a nightly basis to evaluate how the child is measured in terms of optimism, ability to work together, to get along with other kids.
Creative problem solving.
Creative problem
social emotional learning.
that was my question.
Yeah.
Okay. Creative problem, evaluating through creative problem solving, social and emotional learning, optimism and hope for the future, and total resiliency.
And we measure each child in each shelter, and the board is now tracking that on a quarterly basis so that we can see where we're making progress and where we have to make changes. This is not an easy process, as I know all of you know.
Any questions online?
Well, it sounds like then we've done our job, Roderic.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
No.
Thank you so much for being, inviting us to join you. Catherine, return it back to you.
Okay, I'd now like to welcome up Deborah, Arendelle, and Lori Sastowski, two members who joined us as board members just recently to close out tonight. Thank you.
So talk about somebody making your job really easy, right? if you've heard half of what Kathryn said and half of what Roderic said and half of what Char said, you understand the value of this organization. I was thinking that wouldn't it be great to be Oprah Winfrey? And every time I'm standing in front of a group like this, I just want to say, you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car. But I have something so much better to sell, and it doesn't include amazing Ginsu knives. It is an opportunity really to be part of a dynamic organization that's making a difference in the community in which we live, helping those in that community who are most in need of our help. And that is just absolutely magic. You probably all have your own car anyway. So to be able to do that and to listen to the power of the work of the organization and the work of these grantees is amazing. I was sitting there listening to what they have done with $100,000. I want them to manage my life. This is dazzling. It's absolutely dazzling. So we're really happy that you're here. We hope that you will engage and be part of Many Hands in some way. The thing that makes it mean the most to me, I do believe, is knowing that I can't write a check for $350,000 to impact 4 organizations every year, but I can surely write a check for 1,000 or 2,000, and knowing that that's going to be combined with the funds from all of you and result in something magical like this is why I'm part of Many Hands. And I'm really, really hoping that you will join me, because Roderic gave me a sneak peek at the play, what do you call them? Play kits, thank you, at the play kits, and I was incredibly tempted to just sit out there and read and play with Play-Doh. But I came in here and did my job and hope that you will do yours and join us in this effort. Thank you so much.
Well, Deborah, you are definitely a hard act to follow. So you're the dynamic sister, and I'm the serious sister, I guess. I'm here and with Many Hands because it really is a way to actually reach out to my neighbors in this whole metropolitan area. I think a lot of us have a focus that could be national or international, but we don't really know what's going on right under our noses. And this organization does a fabulous job of attracting people to seek us out and also seeking our neighbors out, and really doing a very thorough, professional evaluation so that we can be very confident about our money is going to be spent and spent well. And I think that, and in our own neighborhood with our neighbors, and I think that that is really unique and gives, those of you who have the time to get involved in this process, it's really pretty amazing. It will challenge you, and you'll learn a lot, both from our applicants, but also from our fellow members, who are an amazing, group of people. I think about, people who maybe don't have the time, that they can have the confidence that your fellow members are really going to do a careful and good job with your money. So, contributions, we take them in many forms through the website, either, by credit card. There are forms for contributions of securities, or through a donor advised fund if you have that. We can even take checks tonight. I'm wearing purple, so I'm easy to find. And also, another great thing about this organization is that we do want to be able to help each other be more educated about issues in our community, whether it's the substantive education, health, et cetera, or just things about what is the world of philanthropy and what is responsible philanthropy. So we have, very fortunate to, on November 15th, we are going to have a program that will be online, right? And we are very fortunate to have a woman who I've had the privilege of meeting, Dana Bowen Matthew, who now serves as the Dean of the GW Law School. She is a lawyer, a policymaker, an activist, and a scholar. And her area of expertise is equity in healthcare. And so I think you will find she's an amazing speaker, a wonderful woman, and I think you would find it really a fascinating and informative and inspirational evening. She recently wrote a book called Just Health, Treating Structural Racism and to Heal America, and has also written a book, Just Medicine, A Cure for Racial Inequality in American Healthcare, and is actively involved in expanding some of the institutes at GW Law School to sort of take a holistic view on not only health, but other, issues that we are concerned with, economic empowerment, education, and housing. So we hope that you will join us for that evening. I think you will really find it worth your time. And thank you very much, and pick up some more eatsies on your way out.